Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this is part two of ancient Mesopotamia or of ancient history. The last live stream was about Mr. Beast's success. So if you haven't watched that, go check it out. Yeah, okay. So
But also do check out the first episode of
yes, check out
basically.
check out the videos. Make sure to like.
Do check out the first episode if you have not seen the first episode already,
Yeah.
or just go and see the playlist.
So
Okay, so
the first
let's
vi- the first video is um, the first video we posted was about basic human needs. The second one was Mr. Beast's success, and the third one, this one is ancient
But for
Mesopotamia.
this series, we don't forget about the Mr. B success for this one. For this series, we're talking about ancient history and we're talking about the rise of the Sumerians and these things. So
Yeah,
early
Mr. Beast thing was just a quick
forget
other.
about the Mr. Beast live stream. Let's just get into the Sumerian city states. So
Okay.
early people who lived in the Fertile Crescent began farming and living in small villages. But over time these small villages grew into large cities. A lot of these villages were located in the land of the rolling hills called Mesopotamia, which means the land between the two rivers. Cities first appeared in the southern region of the land, earliest dating back to 3500 BC. These were similar to small independent countries. Each had their own ruler, as well as their own farmland to provide food. Suppose that you were visiting one of these early cities. You could see a wall around these settlements, which 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 had farmland to supply food for the city. Also, they had to they had to get water, as we talked in the last episode, because water, other than air, is the most important
Yeah,
resource
they
that.
couldn't easily get water. They had to like actually look for like rivers, lakes,
And
and
because
things
they
like
were
that.
settling, and that's especially true if they're settling in the middle of the desert, where it is not easy to live in the part of the Fertile Crescent called Mesopotamia. The northern part was very hilly and received rain, so that's where the water source came. But soon, that area got extremely crowded, so it soon became unsustainable to have any more people when the region ran out of resources. So they had to go to the southern area called Sumer, which is in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so um, they had to get water somehow because unlike the northern areas where there's readily available water, the southern areas was a bare barren desert. So it was very hard to get water from there. But luckily, there were two rivers, one called the Tigris and the other called the Euphrates. To sustain their water supply, they had to build tons of canals and dams to regulate the water supply. They also would farm in designated land plots, and soon there was an abundance of water in most of the city states. So, since there's an abundance of water, the city states they the city state areas which were used to actually live on became quote unquote islands because because water was surrounding them. The king, well, we'll talk about king later, but I mean, uh, they all had different types of they have different types of accommodation, which we'll again talk about the hierarchy. But that's how they got water. Essentially, they got water from the Tigris and Euphrates River, which are fed by the mountains. So, essentially, what's going on is they're getting water from the mountains that come through the Tigris and Euphrates River and empower their water supply and their lands and all that. Okay, so speaking of that, let's talk about as I said, there were food shortages in the hills because of unsustainable area and soon water, since it was a very like it wasn't an abundant resource, even though and some cities had more water than others, like I explained before. So a lot of cities and neighboring communities went to war, whether it was through logistics war by poisoning some of the water or through full out all out war. So this led to some problems, right? because everyone was
Yeah.
warring with each other. There were absolutely no alliances. And this is just kind of unsustainable because it led to intense bloodshed, right? Which is not very, very good. So now we'll have to talk about
It's not good at all.
ancient Sumer. So we talked about the basics of ancient Sumer, like how there were ununified city states and ununified, basically people who didn't care for each other in different city states. They just spoke a similar language, but I mean they weren't civilized. So let's talk about food supply, because in our basic needs we talked about how food was very important.
Food and water, yeah.
So we also talked about the complex irrigation just a few minutes ago, and we'll now talk about their first and second inventions for agriculture. Like we said, was very, very important. They invented the plow, which used for tilling or turning soil. Prior to the plow's invention, farmers used animals' horns or pointed sticks to poke holes in the earth where they plant seeds. This was a very time in the earth where they would plant seeds. This is a time consuming process, and farmers needed a faster way to prepare the land for planting.
And also,
This,
if you look at the inventions that they made long back, they won't look that good. But the thing is, back then they didn't have material that they could use. Like now, if you want to build like a tree house or something, you can just go to Home Depot and get some wood or something. At that point, they had to completely do everything from scratch. No, like there were no stores or anything like that. So yeah.
correct. So instead of using animal horns or sticks, the Sumerians made the first plow out of wood, and they would also use bulls to till the soil, and their counterparts, cows, to to get the milk and to also bear more bulls for tilling. Now, now that we've talked about the basic needs that are being fulfilled, let's talk about their complex social structures. Civilizations have a complex organization or social structures, including different jobs in a hierarchy and different social levels. People at higher levels have greater status than others and live more luxurious lives, but also they have more responsibilities. Archaeologists have found evidence suggesting several classes of people lived in Sumer. At the highest level, there were kings, priests, government officials, and nobles. These top members of society had the largest and most luxurious homes near the center of the city, near more near all the wells and all the water supplies they needed.
Yeah, and
They had
also
luxurious
people.
two-story whitewashed walls which surrounded their houses. However, they had a lot of responsibilities which followed their luxury.
It's like if you get a lot of things that are like you get like lot of like luxury and lot of like relaxation, but at the same time you have job like big jobs to do. But then at the same time, if like you're like in the lower class, like a servant, you won't have too much work to do, but you won't get as much luxury.
At the middle level were merchants and artisans. Among the artisans were skilled metal workers who used such metals as gold, silver, tin, lead, copper, and bronze. Also, traders were at this level, and traders were very important because the traders helped import these materials, like the different metals, because they weren't extremely available. So they imported them from different civilizations like Anatolia and the Iranian plateau. So they could, out of these materials, they could create warheads, swords, arrowheads, and luxury items for the rich, including plows, hoes for farmers, such and more luxurious items as such as mirrors, jewelry, and different types of money coins. The middle class also included farmers and fishers living in small mud brick houses at the edge of the city. Farmers often worked to build or repair the irrigation systems. At the bottom level of the social structure were the slaves. Most slaves were enemies that the Sumerians had captured during war. Imagine this. You were a very respected soldier in the upper class. However, you were captured by another city, and now you're at the lowest class, slaves. How would you feel? It is kind of like that, where they put a lot of effort, yet they were captured, and they were captured and couldn't and they were captured and they couldn't do what their high class jobs. And yes, like we said, the government was mainly just kings. They just had all the power, all like basically everything. Five religions. All civilizations have some kind of religious system. A religious system includes both set of belief in usually God or gods, as well as various forms of worship. Unlike religions like Islam or Christianity, the the Sumerians were polytheistic like Hinduism and believed in many different gods. Constructing temples and religious towers called ziggurats um, was one way ancient Sumerian expressed their religious beliefs. It was the king's duty to build and maintain these ziggurats, which you can still find in the cities of Ur. Now, ziggurats were also places where the gods could live, and the gods lived in special chambers which only priests and kings could visit. Of course, these gods were not nothing more than just superstition, but of course, the kings believed that, and the people also believed that. Some ziggurats were so large they could be seen from over 20 miles away. Some were as high as 7 stories and as wide as 200 feet. The Sumerians may have believed that their gods lived in ziggurats, like I said before.
Ziggurat,
Sumerian
sorry,
statues also expressed religious beliefs,
and
and whenever Sumerians conquered another city, they would make victory steles honoring them and the gods. Sumerians had many types of religious ceremonies, the most common being sacrifice, which is that of killing someone, usually a slave or servant or a prisoner who's been captured in war. All civilizations have a highly developed culture, including arts um, and creative forms of expression, such as architecture and painting. Music was another influential art in ancient Sumer. They would have loved to create love songs and entertain guests at feasts by playing instruments like the lyre. Sumerian musicians played a variety of instruments, including drums and pipes, and again the lyre and a music box. And all of these instruments were very well decorated in honor of their awesome gods. Now, we cannot talk about ancient Sumer without talking about their technology. Earlier, we talked about
and
homes and other.
technology doesn't mean like iPhones, tablets, iPads. Like, it doesn't mean like that.
Technology means a different advancement to adapt to the landscape that they have.
Yeah.
So like iPhone, iPad, that's adapting to our connected future essentially. So back then, like holes, wheels, they were all very they were all very important inventions. And the main wheel, which I mean, who knows if the Sumerians invented this, but they were first one to document this. And they realized that a potter's wheel could be used to move different objects, and then they were used to build the simple things like a chariot. It could be hard to discover a more powerful invention than the wheel before its invention because people had to drag goods on something called sledges, which is much less efficient than dragging something or moving something on a wheel. And again, it would be like if you drag something, especially across hard ground, it will cause friction. And friction is not that good. Writing. Let's talk about cuneiform. It's the Latin word for wedge. It looked like a stylus, a sharp pointed tool. And these quote unquote styluses were placed in many different configurations to indicate different pictures and later different sounds. There were different languages written in the script, including ancient Persian. Cuneiforms were basically based on an earlier form of writing. So and now because of all this ununification, someone has to come and unify all of Mesopotamia, right?
Yeah.
So these are called empires, and the first person to do this in Mesopotamia was King Sargon. About 4,300 years ago, a king called Sargon was absolutely sick of having to go and fight all these wars, and he was a big he was a big shot in that of military. So he used that to his advantage. And using tactical skills, he broke down the walls of neighboring city states and took them all over until he created the Akkadian Empire. Of course, the downfall of this would be that the walls would not be there to protect the Akkadian Empire against invasions from other empires. So that was the only catch. But King Sargon lived a long time and had all the control over the Akkadian Empire. But he declared his sons to rule after his death. But what happened is his sons couldn't keep up such a large empire because they weren't as skilled in military and were used to living their life in luxury. Now, life under Akkadian rule was like very strict because he would
Because
he would
doing
Sargon would like inflict a lot of power onto the people because that he conquered.
also
That would
doing
make
something for the
lots of
first time. Also, sorry, Tyler. Also doing something for the first time, if you've never done before, it probably won't go too well. So, yeah.
Anyway, so the Akkadians may have ruled Sumer, but the Sumerian culture, including their religions and their irrigation techniques, continued to live on. Sargon placed his daughter in a powerful position of high priestesses so that people will honor her. This was the first this was the first example of a woman being put into a place of power. The Akkadians had their own cultural achievements, and over time, their new language replaced that of the Sumerians. In art, they became well known for their victory steles. Sargon hoped that his empire would last 1,000 years, but future kings, like I explained before, had were succumbed to invaders from the north and the east. These were This is kind of sad. But later, Hammurabi came and changed everything. Hammurabi was the king of the Babylonian Empire. And the Babylonian Empire was very important. Hammurabi said that he was descended from the gods to make laws. And the laws, everyone had to be everyone had to follow the laws, otherwise they would be strictly punished. He believed strictly in the fact that whatever you do will come back to you. You will treat others the way you want to be treated. For example, if a builder builds a house and the buyer of the house, then the house collapses on the buyer's son, then the
Naga,
builder's
why are
son
you
will
talking?
get killed because it's equal to equal.
That's
Now,
Amma in
so many laws, and they were inscribed on different pillars, which rest at different museums today. Hammurabi's code was detailed, covering many different situations as trade, payment for work, marriage, divorce, war, punishment, stealing, causing injury, and more. Like this, laws seem harsh to us, but Hammurabi's code was a notable achievement back for the time because back then, I mean, a king could do whatever he wants. He just regulated himself too. So, of course, the life under the Babylonian Empire was very strict, and he did help protect local statuses. Agriculture and trade flourished as a result, and Hammurabi was careful to maintain the irrigation systems so the land remained permanently fertile. There were no major revolts under the Babylonian Empire. Talking about how Babylonians were violent or bad to them. But now let's talk about Assyria. Assyria is the line after the Babylonians, and these were the most aggressive of the Mesopotamian empires. They conquered almost all of the Fertile Crescent, including to Egypt, Judea, Phoenicia, and even some parts of Anatolia, now known as Turkey, and even Iran. But such a large empire couldn't last too long, and because of extreme violence, the, the Assyrian Empire soon fell. And for example, an Assyrian king could just come and cut off anyone's head if he wanted. Now let's talk about the Neo-Babylonian Empire. One of the most impressive because it was the most peaceful. After the fall of Assyria, the Babylonians once again took control of Mesopotamia. And the new empire's most famous king was called Nebuchadnezzar II, a ruthless military leader. He reigned from 605 to 561 BCE. Nebuchadnezzar expanded his empire wherever possible and drove the Egyptians out of Syria. He also he also conquered part of Canaan, present-day Israel, which we'll talk about later in the series, in the home of the Israelites or the Jews. When the Israelites rebelled, he took most of them captive and brought them to Babylonia. Many of them were not able to return to their homeland, which we will talk about in our religion and our Jewish episode coming up very soon. So please subscribe to the channel. Also, now is a good time to like the video if you haven't already. Now
Yeah.
let's go on.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, yeah, remember to like the video, share the video if you can, and yeah, so let's go on.
All right, so the most famous achievements of the Neo-Babylonians were that of building the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were one of the most important structures back in the ancient world. They were fully self-sufficient, and they were fully able to withstand for themselves. So um they were able to run themselves. Currently, we have no clue where the Hanging Gardens are, but there are many different evidences of it existing. Now, now that we've explored the four empires of ancient Mesopotamia, now we have to talk about the fall of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. And surprisingly, another Mesopotamian empire did not take control. This time, the Persians came, and Cyrus and Darius, they came and wreaked havoc on the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and they completely destroyed it. Now, that was mainly Cyrus the Great. And then what happened was after Cyrus came, he was crowned as the first non-Jewish Messiah because he allowed the Jews to return to their homeland. So so and we'll talk about that much later. Anyway, so thank you for watching this video. Please share
Okay,
and like
thank you
subscribe.
guys for watching this video. Make sure to
Please
like
like
the
this
video if you
video.
are.
Please subscribe.
Yep, make
Let's
sure to
share this
comment down
video.
below that you watched it, or even if you're here, so then we know that you guys are here. We'll reply to you, of course, and yeah. So thank
And
you.
of course, we would like to end with a question.
Yeah.
What would you do if you were Hammurabi and you were creating a law? What would you do? Would it be nice and would it be a lenient law, or would it be extremely strict in order to save your command?
Yep.
But you have more chances of being rebelled at.
And
Comment down below. Share this video with your friends because I'm curious to see your answer.
yep, that's for you guys to answer. Make sure to hit the video with a like and then subscribe. And yeah, see you guys in the next